Well, folks, welcome to another episode from Ghost Stories. At this very moment, I'm just taking it all in this beautiful evening in Drogheda in County Louth, walking around this President graveyard that has so much history that I did not realise. One story goes back to Sir Edward Golding, who was a very, very popular and very indeed rich man back in his time in politics in England and Ireland. And he had several wives, and one of his wives was Elizabeth Fleming, who the two of them took a romantic boat trip and drowned on the River Boyne. And there's a storyline you're going to have to keep watching to find out more in relation to Elizabeth Fleming and Sir Edward Golding. And in this episode, there's another storyline of Anne Hardyman, who was pronounced dead in the 1800s. Her family were having a gathering in the front lawn of the garden just outside Drogheda after burying Anne Hardyman. and to the surprise, Anne Hardiman walked up the lawn and joined them for their cup of tea and sandwiches. After that, she died 20 years later. So, watch this episode with 50 likes and we'll come back and we'll do a live investigation. Enjoy the show. Slán go fóill. Hello folks, and welcome to another quick episode from Ghost Stories. Well, today I've brought you to an unusual event and an unusual story, and it's the story of Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming. Back in the time, Sir Edward Golding was high in the politics, a very, very wealthy man here in Drogheda, and he was known for the high politics in England as well. And he married a lady called Elizabeth Fleming, and the River Boyne in Drogheda has many a story, a ghostly story, but this is one graveyard here in St. Peter's Church in Drogheda that holds two ghostly stories. One story that we'll start now is in relation to Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming. There is the headline, and that's what Sir Edward Golding looks like just there. So what we're going to tell you about this one: Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming, back in the heyday, were rowing a boat down the River Boyne. They're saying that they were out on a romantic trip down the River Boyne, which the River Boyne is just located a couple of hundred yards, not too far away where we are now. But unfortunately for Elizabeth Fleming and Sir Edward Golding, they came to a very quick end, where the two of the two lovers, Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming, boat overturned, and the two of them were tragically drowned. Their bodies were recovered and brought back to the cemetery here, and today the structure of their two remains, of their skeleton remains, well, it's not their actually skeleton remains, but it's a structure was made of concrete of Elizabeth Fleming and Sir Edward Golding. There was a tomb erected here, but unfortunately as time and years went by it fell apart. So the people of Drogheda town re-erected the tomb up against the wall here in St. Peter's in here in Drogheda. And the reason why they did such an awful headstone erected is because they wanted to show people that money and wealth, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how much wealth you have or land you have, we're all going in the same place as everybody else. And I don't know much about Sir Edward Golding, but I know he was very high in his politics, and he was involved in England a lot. And when he married Elizabeth Fleming, they erected the tomb here, and I'm going to show you the headstone now. And they wanted to show people it doesn't matter how much money and wealth you had, that we're all going out the same way we came in. And I just want to show you the headstone now. So there it is, it's up against the wall here, and they erected this headstone in relation to Sir Edward Golding. You can see it here against the wall here. On the right is herself, Elizabeth Fleming, and on the left is Sir Edward Golding. And you remember Sir Edward Golding was very high in his politics, and Elizabeth Fleming married into Sir Edward Golding. This tomb was erected somewhere in the graveyard, but it fell apart over the years, and the people of Drogheda put some of whatever is left of the headstones left in here. So you can see it here up against the wall here. And this is the headstone here, the tomb of Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming here, and it continues on all the way down along the wall. You can see it here. So that is the story, one ghostly story in this here of Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming. You can see it behind me. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to do a quick spirit box session, see can we pick it in relation to Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming here, and then we'll move on to one more ghostly story after this. So just join me in. Right, so welcome back. Trevor is just doing a bit of research. He's somewhere in the graveyard about the other lady. We'll come to that in a minute. So we're going to do a quick spirit box session in here, this area here. We're going to turn it around, so earphones on. If I see or hear anything, I will notify it right in the comments. So I'm going to turn around the camera. We're going to point it on this area here. Right, just keep it there. So Trevor, welcome back. Are you going to join us, Trevor? Yeah. Trevor, you did a bit of research there. Trevor, what did you find about the other story?
There was a woman here. She came back from the dead here in this grave.
That's right. Her name was Anne Hardiman.
Anne Hardman.
That's correct. Yeah.
She died in 1884 and was buried in a tomb rather than
That's right. So I'm just going to hold you there.
conventional grave.
Yeah, her name was Anne Hardiman. She was buried here. You know what year? Does this give the year? No.
1884.
So 1884. So I know most of the story about this. Anne Hardiman was she was a very, very wealthy lady. In 1884, she died. Okay, and suddenly they buried her here somewhere in this graveyard. Trevor might have a wee out nosy in a few minutes. He can find her. But the story goes that the gardener was left to bury her in her tomb. And the family went back home and they were having their sandwiches and the tea in the garden. And the story goes that the gardener tried to take her jewellery off. She was such a wealthy woman that he was taking her jewellery off her as she laid in the coffin. And she came back to life. And the gardener legged it out of this graveyard. Yeah. And he went back to America.
Back on a ship to Liverpool.
Back to Liverpool.
Yeah, but never to return to Drogheda again.
That's correct. But she actually the story goes as well that the gardener went back to America as well, even after Liverpool. But the story goes that when she reawoke after the gardener tried to take the jewellery off her fingers, she walked out of this graveyard, right back home, where they were having the celebration of the burial of what's her name? Anne Hardiman. And to their surprise, they seen Anne Hardiman walking up the garden as they were having their tea and sandwiches. And
they had buried her at noon that day.
That's correct.
And they couldn't believe their eyes when she returned home.
And she lived for many years after that, and she was re-erected back to this graveyard, back to the grave that she originally was laid to rest in. So Trevor, do you want to join me in Sir Edward Golding, or do you want to have a look, see can you find Hardiman's grave?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we'd look for it together, I think. What we'll do, we'll come back here to this one. So Trevor, come back and join me here. So what we're going to do with Trevor here, we're going to do a spirit box session here. Right, well, let's turn around, Trevor. This is you heard me talking about Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming. This is part of the tomb that's laid up against the wall in relation to it. Mm-hmm. And he was a very wealthy man, Sir Edward Golding, and he married Elizabeth Fleming, but they tragically drowned in a boat accident on the River Boyne. And because they had so much wealth, Trevor, the people of Ireland were starving that time, back in the time. And this man here, they made this kind of a sculpture to show people, it doesn't matter how much money and wealth you have, we're going to erect this tomb for you two here, because they were so greedy they never helped out the poor, and this is the way they buried them. And that's the myth and the story. Now I might be wrong, but that's what I read up. So we found it, Trevor. Let's do a spirit box and see what we can pick up, okay? So here we go. Okay, Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming, my name is Philip. If your spirit is around us and you heard us saying the story in relation to your death on the River Boyne, can you come and say hello to us? Say Edward, Elizabeth Fleming. Are the stories and the myths true? What people are saying about Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming, and why did they erect such a tomb like this in your mark of your respect?
Including travel outside of our...
Are you enjoying the music today?
Is there any spirits who'd like to come and say hello to us?
First answer for each question.
Okay.
Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming. That's the kind of music that they would play back in that time, wouldn't it? Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming. Are the stories true?
Ever to control the spirit. Choose recovery. Let's keep
recovery. Do you want to say anything there, Trevor? Do you want to say anything in relation to it? No, Trevor's very frightened of this. I think, Trevor, when you look at the remains of the skeletons there of made of concrete, what's coming to your mind? Yeah. Well, here, Trevor, is supposed to be Elizabeth Fleming.
Yeah, I could see her with the long hair.
Yeah, and here is supposed to be Sir Edward Golding. Set my soul. Yeah, I don't know what to say, but if I do hear it back, I will write it back. We're going to take a wee gander and look for Mrs. Hardiman's grave now, but I'm just going to finish it off here. Before we go, Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming, have you anything to say to us?
To the ones that we lost on the way, 'cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back memories. Does it keep you in control?
Hope is returning.
Hope is returning. Right, Trevor, we haven't got much time, but I will return back here to another day. So that is the story in relation to Sir Edward Golding and Elizabeth Fleming. I will come back here before we finish the video. We're just going to take a wee gander around and look for Mrs. Hardiman's grave. Is that Trevor? What's her name? Do you know her? Anne Hardiman. So you split up, Trevor. I walk around one way, and we're just going to take a wee gander around and see if we find it. Anne Hardiman's grave. So the story goes that Anne Hardiman, as it says, she died and she risen from the dead, and she died many years later. So she's buried here somewhere. So we're going to have a wee gander and see can we find it. Just going to put that spirit box in it, and we're looking for Sir Anne Hardiman. So Alexander Pallister, 78 years of age. So we're looking for Anne Hardiman. Trevor's gone one way, I'm gone another way, and we're going to look around and see what we can find. Anne Hardiman. Erected. George Henry Daly. So we're looking for Anne Hardiman. We're taking a good look around to see what I can find. I would say she'd be in the old part of the graveyard, Trevor. Anne Hardiman's grave. So we're taking a good look around, guys. We're looking for Anne Hardiman's grave. It could be anywhere. Could be absolutely anywhere. We'll just take a good gander around to see what we can find. It could be even there. It could be even there. It's such an old grave. So we'll take another gander, wee gander around. Could be anywhere, Trevor. Sir Edward Bowling. Could be even in here. Well, it's very impossible to find where Anne Hardiman is buried. She could be anywhere, but she is buried here somewhere. So I'm going to turn around the camera and we're going to call out for Anne Hardiman as she guide us to her grave. But she's buried here somewhere, and the story goes that she died and the family were buried. The story goes the family buried her here, and as the family were at home having a cup of tea, the gardener was in here, and he was laying her to rest, and he was taking the jewellery off her, and she came back from the dead. That is the story, but as I says, it could be anywhere here. I just can't find it. So I'm going to just turn on the spirit box for a second and see, can we find, like, there's loads of graves and I don't know where she's buried. She even could be buried here, don't know. So I'm just going to turn on the spirit box and see what we can pick up. We'll call out for Anne Hardiman. It could be anywhere. Anne Hardiman, if your spirit is in this graveyard, can you come forward please and say hello to us? My name is Philip, and I want to find out, is the story true about the people say that you died and you came back from the dead, and your servants were taking the jewellery off you, and you came back from the dead and you walked back home, and you lived for a couple of years after that. Anne Hardiman.
Stand by, time for a pick.
Right next to me.
Right next to me. Is that where you're buried, Anne?
Stand by, 6-7. Green Party TD.
Any spirits in this graveyard wish to come and say hello to me?
Or otherwise may be disadvantaged. The funding will be available through.
Live here in RT Lyric FM at
Royal Gardens or somewhere in.
In the meantime, I just want to say, I mentioned
It's Crystal Palace.
to Catherine Motherway.
Action. But now, sports.
The we got quite emotion. Last night, words.
So there's nothing coming through, and I'm still looking for Anne Hardiman's grave. I took a good look at walk around, and it could be anywhere. It could be even here. This could be even it. Right guys, we took a good walk around. We just can't find Anne Hardiman's grave, but we're going to keep walking on the way out. If we find it, we find it. And I don't think we're going to, we'll do another spirit box only if we find it, but I don't see it. Oh, look. Look. Anne Hardiman. Look at that. Right, we're standing on it. We're looking for it. Last grave on the way out. Look at that. That's it. So that's the grave. The year, Trevor. What's the year, Trevor?
She died in the
What does it say in the thing?
the 3rd of June. Looks like
1864.
Yeah.
Age 92 years. That would be it, though, would it?
Yeah. That's her.
Huh?
Anne Hardiman, yeah.
Anne Hardiman. So that'll be it.
Yeah.
So that'll be the grave of Anne Hardiman. So we're just about to leave the graveyard, and this is the grave here of Anne Hardiman. So we're just going to finish it off here now, since we found it. And 2 magical stories, weren't there, Trevor? Absolutely 2 magical stories. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend about less than 1 minute here, so we're just going to get set up with the spirit box. So we found Anne Hardiman's grave, right? And it says she died at 92 years of age when she from her second time. Now it doesn't say it. It just says in love and memory of Anne Hardiman, daughter of the late Edward Hardiman of Drogheda, who died on the 3rd of June 1864, aged 92 years of age. Now I'm just going to turn around, and you can see how it was all re-carved in, but you can see it there. But the story goes of Anne Hardiman that she did die, and her gardener came back in here, and he was left to bury her remains, and he was taking her jewellery off her, and she came back from the dead, and she walked back home, and she lived until 92 years of age, and she died in 1864 after that. So let's turn around the camera, let's do a quick spirit box session here, and we'll call out for Anne Hardiman before we move on. Good evening to Anne Hardiman, daughter of the late Edward Hardiman of Drogheda, who died on the 3rd of June 1864, age 92 years of age. We're just passing through. We heard the story in relation to your first death, Anne Hardiman, who died. Do you remember the first, what year did it say on the Google Trevor? 1884. We're going to get the right stories before we finish it up. So she originally died in, Trevor is saying here, she originally died in 1884, and then it says on the tomb that she died back in 1864. That couldn't be right, Trevor, because it says 1860.
She died in 1884.
1884, but it says here she died in 1864 here. See it here? That's a 6. She died in 1864. Yeah. This one here says she died in it.
Maybe it was that when she died, she came back to life, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
So maybe that's what it probably was. She died 20 years later then.
She died 20 years after she re-erected from the dead.
Yeah.
So that was the original date she did die.
Yeah.
1864.
Maybe, yeah. So she died. She came back from the dead probably in 1864 and then died again in 20 years later.
20 years later. So we just turn on Spirit Box before we leave.
So she would have been 72 when she died.
Yeah. And it says here 92. Her age was 92.
92, yeah.
92. So would that be the original age that she did die? So at 92.
She would have, no, her original age would have been 72.
So I'm still confused though. Before we do any spirit box session, because it says here that Anne Hardiman here, right, died on the 3rd of June 1864, and she aged 92 years of age. But you're saying that it says on the computer saying that she died 1884. That was how many years after that? 20 years. So she lived for 20 years after she died. So she must have did die so of 92 years of age, and she was 72. So add 72 to 92. So she's lived for next to 20 years after she erected from dead. So that'd be more like it now. So let's get it right. So Anne Hardiman died on the year 1864. 64, right? She re-erected at 1864, and she died in 1884. So she lived for an extra 22 years, and she died in 92 years. That's amazing. So let's try it. So we have the story right now. So are the stories true, Anne, that they say in Drogheda? Can you use this device we have in our hand and try and communicate with us? Very hard to pick getting up. So what we do, Trevor, we walk out this. We're just going to walk back this way, and that's for the last time. Just thinking you can make it.
And a whole range of others.
Are the stories true that you died in 1864, and as your gardener was burying you, he took the jewellery off you, and you came back from the dead, and you lived for an extra 22 years?
To work or caused even skin irritation. So
that was something wrong with the worker came through there. Anyway, we can't spend too long at this because Caroline's waiting for us. I'll put details up in relation to Anne Hardiman up here now. You can see it there, and you can Google about her death. And we will return only if you want us to come back in relation to Elizabeth Fleming and Sir Edward Golding, and come back and do another investigation about Anne Hardiman. There's two ghost stories in the one graveyard: Elizabeth Fleming, Sir Edward Golding, and Anne Hardiman. If we get 20 yeses, come back. Myself and Trevor will come back and we'll do a live investigation here. How is that, Trevor? But we need to get 20 yeses. If we get 20 yeses, we'll come back and do a live investigation here in relation to Sir Edward Golding, Elizabeth Fleming, and Anne Hardiman. So it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from the quiet Trevor, who's getting very spooked out here, and we're going to leave you with this one and Michael Jackson as we walk out. So slán go fóill. See you later.